Hello, my name is Miranda Allen, and welcome to Bloomboard Top 10 Tips using the Louisiana Tech Mentor Teacher and Content Leader training courses. Let's get started. Tip number 1 is study the rubrics. Dr. Vessel will give you access to some of the Bloomboard rubrics. When you get your Bloomboard account, you will be able to log in and have access to those rubrics as well. My advice is to study those rubrics as early as you can. The more you familiarize yourself with those rubrics, the more comfortable you will be in the process, and the more able you will be to produce assignments and artifacts that you will be able to utilize in your Bloomboard submission. Bloomboard gives you specific outlines of what you need in order to meet a demonstrated level for all of the criteria. One of your assignments in the course is to annotate the rubrics and go through them carefully. So take advantage of that assignment and really spend some time getting to know what you're going to need to do in order to score demonstrated on your tasks. Tip number 2 is make a plan. Dr. Vessel asks you to create a plan during your courses in order to get ready to begin working on your tasks for Bloomboard. I suggest that you spend a good amount of time thinking about what your plan is going to be. Even if you don't know exactly what artifacts you're going to include in each requirement for your task, you can leave blanks in the areas that you're not sure what you're going to use yet. Dr. Vessel suggested making a table or a list and giving yourself a deadline. I operate every day of my life from a to-do list, so I chose to make a checklist format. I went through and created a section for each of the requirements. This is for Task A, Mentoring to Improve Classroom Management. So I knew that for the Analyze section, the rubric said I would submit a 300-word narrative identifying classroom management coaching goals. For Develop, this is where I would include my coaching plan. For Implement, I would need artifacts for relationship building, coaching and support, and monitoring progress. When I created this task checklist, the only one that I knew for sure is that I was going to include my partnership agreement, which was an assignment we had already done. And then for requirement 4 for Evaluate, I would need to include my mentee reflection and mentor reflection. So when you get ready to make your plan, make sure you make it in a format that is going to work best for you and something that you will really be able to use to keep yourself on track as you go through the process. And once you get familiar with these different parts that you'll need to include, you can keep an eye out for things that you're doing throughout the course that you might be able to plug in to these areas. Tip number 3 is use your assignments. You can see here that I have an updated Task A checklist. This one I had added the goal for when I wanted to have this task complete, and I plugged in all of the artifacts that I was going to include in my submission for mentoring to improve classroom management. So all of the highlighted areas are actual assignments that I did for the course. So we'll go over the coaching plan in a minute, but the coaching plan is key in your submission. Everything's going to build from that. So you want to have that in there for sure. The partnership agreement, I said earlier, I already had in there. You will have a assignment where you have to look for observation tools and other data collection forms that you can use as a mentor or a content leader. Take advantage of that assignment. It really gives you a chance to seek out new tools and compare tools that you will be able to use for your Bloomboard submission. Dr. Vessel will give you access to a lot of her tools that they use with their team program, with their mentor program at Tech. So definitely take advantage of those and save everything so that you can use those in your submission. And also, I included my completed coaching plan as an artifact for monitoring progress. And again, that just keeps everything in line. You'll see on this task, this is for task B. This is my checklist for the second task that I did. Again, the highlighted areas are parts of my submission that were from actual assignments from the course. So you will have a chance to brainstorm and collaborate with your cohort about some good artifacts to use for relationship building. So a lot of ideas can be gathered from that. Also, for coaching and support, you have an opportunity to create a daily dialogue journal. This was one of my favorite artifacts that I used with a Google Doc. So really take advantage of that assignment because it was a good piece for me to include for coaching and support. Also, you'll create a co-reflection template that Dr. Vessel will give you from their team model. This was a great artifact to include. And also, again, with the observation tools, you want to use that. That is a great artifact for you to include to prove your data and show how you used that throughout your mentoring cycle. Tip number 4 is stay organized. Dr. Vessel will suggest to you many times to create a file to collect everything that you create and everything that you gather through the course. So make sure you do that. I created a folder in my Google Drive for each course. When I got started making checklists, I had all of those ready to go. We weren't sure how many tasks we would need to create during my time in the course, so I had all 6 checklists that I was starting on. Once I started working on each specific task, I created folders for those. You can see here in my Task A folder, as I would create each artifact, I would have it in this folder. I went ahead and scanned in documents that were not computer generated, that were artifacts that I was including, so that whenever I got access to my Bloomboard account, everything was ready to upload. So make sure you label things carefully and neatly, and the more time you spend on organizing that, the easier and less stressful it will be. Whenever you do get access to your Bloomboard account, it will be a lot easier for you to upload everything into Bloomboard when you're ready to submit. Tip number 5 is create a good coaching plan. This is one of your assignments in the courses, and you want to make sure that you spend a good amount of time working on your coaching plan or finding one that you like. I created my coaching plan and did several edits to it before I got what I really wanted and felt like I needed to work through this process. Make sure you pay close attention to your lessons about the SMART goals. These parts of the coaching goal will help you just build a really good coaching plan and help you work through the entire process. So if you start with something really good and follow Dr. Vessel's advice on those SMART goals, then you will be starting off on the right track. This is the first page to my coaching plan. It ended up being 2 pages, and I utilized it for Task A and Task B, and it was just a really good artifact that I referred to several times in my reflections. So spend a good amount of time working on a coaching plan that meets all of the criteria that Bloomboard is asking for, that they're asking you to document and prove how you work through each of your coaching cycles. Tip number 6, refer to your artifacts in your reflections. One of the areas that I got counted off for on my Task A was that in my reflection, I did not mention specific artifacts that I included in my implement section for the task. So make sure that you go back and reference the artifacts that you included when you reflect on your entire mentoring cycle. They include that in the rubric, but they really want you to show and tell about what artifacts specifically that you used and how they helped you analyze your mentee's progress through each coaching cycle. Tip number 7 is show your data and use it as a guide. Dr. Vessel will give you access to a lot of data collection tools. You will have some wonderful tools from the Louisiana Department of Education that you can utilize for your mentoring cycle. Make sure you include those as your artifacts and make sure you discuss at length how they show your mentee's growth throughout that coaching cycle. This was one of my favorite observation data collection tools from the Louisiana Department of Education, where you can show your mentee's strengths and areas for growth and target one specific area that you can use for your next coaching cycle. So make sure that you are utilizing these data collection tools and discussing them very thoroughly in your reflections when you discuss each artifact for your task. Tip number 8 is don't submit more than one task at a time. Dr. Vessel will tell you that it's better to submit 1 or 2 tasks than to do all of them at one time and submit everything at one time. You want to kind of get your feet wet with Bloomboard before you jump all in. When you submit a task and get feedback, it lets you know what level of work they're actually asking for and how to move forward from there. When I started my Bloomboard process, I submitted 2 tasks at one time because those were the tasks that I had completed whenever I got access to my Bloomboard account. When I submitted my tasks, I felt better about my content instruction submission. This was the one that I completed towards the end of my courses and just felt like I had a better grasp of what was expected and really put more time and more artifacts into this submission. And this was the one that I passed on the first try. So it gave me a good idea of the level of work, again, that Bloomboard was asking for and where I needed to work on areas moving forward. Tip number 9 is annotate or justify your artifacts well. Bloomboard is very picky about your annotating and justification of each of your artifacts, especially on your implement section for tasks A and B for the classroom management and content instruction tasks. You want to make sure that you are studying that rubric and meeting all of the criteria that they're asking for when you annotate or justify. When I say annotate or justify, they give you the choice to either annotate on your artifact or you can do a written justification, which is what I chose to do for my artifacts. I like writing. I'm used to writing in my doctoral program, so that's just what I did for all of my artifacts. And it really made it easier for me to go back and make any changes that they asked for whenever I got feedback on one of my tasks. So make sure that you are spending really a lot of time studying what exactly they want whenever you do your annotations and your justifications. Tip number 10 is don't panic if you don't pass. So I mentioned earlier that I submitted 2 tasks at one time. We got access to our Bloomboard accounts on a Tuesday. Tuesday night, I sat down and uploaded all of my artifacts into my Bloomboard account. And 2 days later, on Thursday night, about 6:30 p.m., I got an email from Bloomboard saying, "Congratulations, you earned your micro-credential for mentoring to improve content instruction." So that was very exciting, but it was also very scary because I only got one email. So the next day, about 10:30 or 11 in the morning, I got another email from Bloomboard about my mentoring to improve classroom management. And it didn't say congratulations, but it also didn't say you failed or you stink. It just said go to Bloomboard and review your submission because they had finished the grading. So I logged into Bloomboard, and as I mentioned earlier, it tells you exactly what areas you passed. So you get to keep the parts of your task, all of the things that you did that met the demonstrated level, and then it shows you exactly which part didn't pass and tells you exactly why you didn't pass it. So for my submission, I had to go back to my analyze portion and make some changes. Well, I had to add more detail in discussing what specific concrete evidence I wanted to see from my mentee in order for her to show that she is meeting her coaching goal. And for my mentor reflection, I had to go in and add some information about what I learned from the process. I did include a paragraph about what I would do differently, but I didn't include the words, "I learned this." So I just went in and added, changed the wording a little bit and said, next time I will do this because I learned this, and resubmitted that task that night. So that was on a Friday night. And then on Monday morning, I got an email saying that I had passed that micro-credential as well. So it's okay if you don't pass. You can try again, and they will give you really good feedback. Dr. Vessel will tell you that they give very good feedback and let you know what you need to do to resubmit. One of the things that might be of concern to you is if you, like me, do not have a mentee while you're working on this process. So I am on professional sabbatical this year and do not have a mentee, but I was still able to pass the classroom management and content instruction tasks and earn those micro-credentials. So here are just a few tips for that. My first one is use your past experiences with mentoring new teachers or teacher candidates as a tool. So as a teacher of 16 years, I've had a lot of experience with working with novice teachers or pre-service teachers. I always love having college students come in to do observations. My principals know that if they ask me, send me an email, I will always say yes. So I just drew from those experiences and working with new teachers and thought about that a lot while I was working on these artifacts. Another tip, if you don't have a mentee, is to just make up your mentor-mentee reality and live there until you're done. So while I was working through these, I really just pretended like I was mentoring someone and just worked through each task, keeping that mindset that this was really something that I was doing, even though it was made up. But I just kept that in mind the whole time to be able to get through the process. And another good tip, if you don't have a mentee, is to get a really good friend or sister like me to help you create your artifacts. So I actually had my sister who lives in Arizona help me to create some of my artifacts where I actually needed someone. So you can see right here for my partnership agreement, I used my sister's name and just pretended like she was my mentee. For one of my relationship building artifacts, I wanted to have a text message conversation. So I emailed her a script and we started a text message conversation about a Christmas luncheon, and where we talked about how we were going to have a luncheon at school, and I told her that we should have matching ugly sweaters, and we just really showed that we were working as a team and building our relationship together. So that was just a really good artifact to include and one that worked well for my submission. So you can make it work if you have to. If you're like me in a situation where you don't have a mentee, you can still work through this process, at least for those first 2 tasks for classroom management and content instruction. And that concludes my Bloomboard Top 10 Tips. Feel free to email me at any time at miranda.allen@bosierschools.org. And feel free to follow me at MirandaAllen647 on Twitter. I want you to know that you can do this. It is possible, and I believe in you. And just contact me if there's anything I can do to help you or if you have any questions. Until next time, thank you so much and good luck.